Hey, deserving listeners, it's time to continue watching Kalani and Asuelu on 90 Day Fiancé. Let's get to the show.
Last night, Asuelu showed up to the hotel with balloons and flowers because tomorrow is Valentine's Day. And he kind of just pretended like nothing happened, and he didn't apologize for anything or want to talk about anything. It's almost like he doesn't even understand what he's done wrong. He just wants to get on the plane and go home.
Okay, so I don't know exactly what's happening because I'm not there and I'm not their therapist, but I have seen this sort of pattern before where the partner who is more of the child role will, after a fight, will not know how to resolve it. Their emotions have calmed down and they just want to put it behind them, like a child might do. If you get into a fight, if you will, with your sibling, and you're 10 years old, it's not common for the 10-year-olds to sit down, say you're 10 and your sibling's 9 years old and you get into a fight while you're playing. You get a little rough. And then an hour later, you're like, I just want to put it behind me. It's not typical that the 10-year-old and a 9-year-old are going to sit down and have a heart-to-heart conversation. They can, and it'd be great if they did, but it's also developmentally normal for them to just put it behind them. They are, in a way, gesturing to their sibling that they love them and they like them and they just want to move forward, and they might do something nice. Asuelu right now, the two of them had a huge fight last night. You could debate as to whose fault it was, honestly. In the last episode, we saw it. I think Kalani definitely thinks that it's his fault. I'm guessing he thinks that it's her fault. I have always experienced that with the couples that come into my office. They're always 100% convinced that it's always the other person's fault. When we look into it, fault doesn't really matter. It's just a matter of how it progressed. Unless it really is one person's fault, which occasionally happens, but not usually. And my outsider's opinion is that they both contributed, at least in part, to the fight that they had. And for Asuelu, his way of coping with it, behaviorally anyway, is to not talk about it, put it behind him, and he just wants to forge forward. It's Valentine's Day. He did something nice for Kalani, and he is gesturing or bidding or requesting through passive behaviors to put it behind the two of them. And that's fine. If two people are like that, sometimes that can work. As a therapist, I tend to want to be more like Kalani, which is, let's talk about it. Let's try to resolve it. Let's try to make it not happen again. So now, on one hand, you could say that it is just a style thing, that for some people, they just want to put it behind them and they don't want to talk about it. Like I said, for some people that can work. For a lot of people, that is dysfunctional because it doesn't give the opportunity to resolve. But it can be functional. But there's also another class of behaviors that are indicative of people who are terrified of conflict or feel completely inept to have a conversation around conflict, which it looks like Asuelu might be a candidate for. At least that's an hypothesis about him, is that his underfunctioning ways, maybe the way he was treated in his family, particularly, and also because of the way Kalani treats him, he might just have a general idea about who he is as a person as incompetent. And to step into a space to have a back and forth about what went wrong, he might be very scared and intimidated by that and just wants to move forward and sweep it under the rug. I don't know. Let's see what happens.
Still her sister, too. We are a couple. We don't like my family and your family to get involved.
You don't like that my family tries to stick up for me, and you take that as them trying to mess up our marriage.
You never listen.
So, I think that they're both right, so to speak. Of course, Kalani deserves to talk to her sister when she is upset with Asuelu. Of course, Kalani should be able to talk to whomever she wants to talk to, particularly people in her family that are supportive of her. And of course, Asuelu has no right to say that Kalani can't talk to whoever she wants to talk to, within reason, of course, and particularly her family. And also, it is perfectly fine. I don't think Asuelu is communicating this very effectively. I'm guessing what's underneath this for Asuelu is he feels as though her family has had it out for him from the beginning, which I think is true. I don't know about the mom, but definitely the dad, and particularly the sister, has been against Asuelu from the beginning. Now, you could argue that that's a wise decision. I don't know. But for Asuelu's wishes and goals in life, he wants to build a family. He wants to have a good marriage. He wants to be a father. He wants to make it in the United States. And when you have two in-laws who are actively against you, and whenever your spouse goes to, every time Kalani goes to her sister, the sister is there saying, and now the mom is saying this too, like, I don't even understand why you're with him. I've never wanted you to be with him. You could imagine yourself. If you're in a relationship right now, maybe some of you are in this situation where you're in a partnership, you have a significant other, and your significant other's in-laws hate you. It's going to bother you. It's going to feel bad, one. Two, whenever there's any kind of conflict between you and your spouse, and the in-laws are there ready to pounce and say, yeah, you need to leave that person. You have a viable complaint about that. You could say, hey, I don't like the way your family is against me, but you can't bar your partner from talking to their family, right? So it's a classic triangulation. There's conflict between Asuelu and Kalani and the family members, the in-laws. All the in-laws are being triangulated in. And they're both focusing on the outside triangulated third rather than actually resolving their conflict between the two of them.
Listen, your dad told you don't listen to the man that you be with, and
He
that's
sure
the
did.
hardest thing.
Clearly, we're not understanding each other right now, and both of us feel like we're not being heard by the other person. So I think we need to go back, make a therapy appointment, and then talk all of this through.
Wiser words have never been said. Kalani just said exactly what I would say as well. We're clearly not understanding each other. We're misunderstanding each other, which is leading to hurt feelings and more conflict. We clearly need a lot of therapy. Yes, 2 thumbs up, 1 billion thumbs up.
What's that?
Therapy is when you sit down and tell someone, you tell your feelings, I tell my feelings, and they try to tell everyone what's going on
Okay.
and what we should do.
I think that's a good idea so we can help our situation.
Hallelujah. So not only is she proposing it, but Asuelu is on board right from the start. So, as in 90-Day Fiancé tradition, I'm sure they're just going to go to one session, and it'll probably go horribly, and they'll never go back. Let's find out together.
I have never wanted to go home more in my life than right now. This is like the worst trip of my life.
Bye.
All right, so they're about to have a conversation in the car. Sometimes this is good. We'll see what happens. She says, this is the worst vacation of my life. And Asuelu, very, I think in a healthy mood, says, why? Open, curious, hopefully. Now, what should she say? What tone should she have? What should she focus on? Here's my recommendation. If I were a little therapist on her shoulder, I would say, focus on your feelings, don't accuse, give your husband charity, benefit of the doubt. Charity meaning that you imagine that they're coming from a good place, and say something along these lines. Okay, well, I was hoping that this trip would be fun at the very least, and I was also hoping that you'd be able to bond with your family and maybe I'd get to know them better. And I was all ready to have it be a good time. And then we met up with your family and they just instantly started laying into you about this money thing. And I just felt really upset. One, because we don't have that kind of money, and them demanding money from you is demanding money from me as well. And we don't have $1,000 to spare. I mean, that's just ridiculous. To think that we have $1,000 just to throw away like it's extra money is ridiculous. We don't have that kind of money. So when they were demanding that money of you, I felt scared. I also just felt bad for you because the way your family treats you is just terrible. I know you love your family, and I support that. I want to love them too. I'm sure that there's good qualities in them. But for them to just be badgering you like that, making you feel like you're worthless as a son, as a brother, I thought was just one of the highest abuses I've ever seen. I've never seen people treat each other like that, let alone family members. That was awful. It was very tense. I didn't know what to do. I will say that you held the line very well. You never threw me under the bus, and you told them what was up, which I was so proud of you that you did that. I was so happy. And then I felt like I wanted to defend you. I felt like I wanted to defend me. So I got into the mix of it. Maybe I shouldn't have, but I did. And I felt like our conversation with your mom went fairly okay. I mean, she was still laying into you, which I just thought was ridiculous. I mean, the way she talks to you is just so unfair. And then when I met up with them, the two of them, I don't know what I thought we were going to get out of that conversation. Looking back, it was probably a mistake, but I don't know. I guess I just hoped that they'd put it to rest. I thought maybe there would be they'd be reasonable. They were not reasonable. Your sister literally threatened to be violent with me, which I find just to be very strange because I don't have $1,000 to give. She was yelling at me, telling me that I need to get a full-time job and leave my children in daycare so that I would give them money. That was they were saying that they were demanding that I get a full-time job and put my kids in daycare so I could earn money and send all the money to them. That is one of the most selfish things I've ever heard. Now, I don't know what circumstances these people are under. I don't know how poor they are. I don't know how rich they think we are or something, but this level of entitlement is just absurd. And it was very bothersome. It was very hurtful. It was very distressing. And then when I came home to you and I was real riled up, I don't know, you were supportive at first, but then you just started defending them on a certain level, which I just find to be so strange. And there's so many other things that are, I don't know, but I'm just very stressed out. Okay. So if Kalani said something like that, be very healthy. It'd be very justifiable, non-accusatory, give a chance for Asuelu to say, yeah, you know, I get it. I'm on your side. Let's see what Kalani says.
I don't want to talk to the thing happened here anymore.
Of course you don't.
So Kalani didn't say anything when he said why. They were quiet, and then after a while, he just said, I don't want to talk about this anymore. And then Kalani says in a sarcastic tone, of course you don't. So, yeah. Now, for Asuelu to say, I don't want to talk about it anymore, what? For the rest of our lives, I never want to talk about that extremely important series of events that happened.
Because the more I talk, the more I get mad.
Okay.
Now, I will say, again, both are right. Neither is wrong. It's a style thing. If Asuelu was married to someone who was similar to him in this respect, they might actually really appreciate this about each other. It's not, again, the style of a therapist. Therapists tend to want to talk about things. But there are people who aren't like therapists, and they actually can functionally avoid or sweep things under the rug and actually live happy lives together. It has the risk of having things build up under the rug, of course. But for some people, they can make that work. And for Asuelu, maybe he could. And I could kind of see it working because he doesn't seem to hold grudges. He seems to be able to put things behind him and just try to be happy and move forward. He seems like a person who is always looking forward. And some people are like that. That's fine. I would say Kalani is more typical. She's within the sort of the average person realm where they can't just put that behind them, that it's going to plague them as they move forward. I think that's pretty common. Now, maybe for Asuelu, it is plaguing him and he just isn't acknowledging it. I don't know. Let's continue watching.
I just want to be done.
You're done with what?
I don't want to be married anymore.
Wow. Okay. Well, I know that they're on the next Happily Ever After season, so at the very least, she doesn't act on that desire right away. And I would say, okay, that happens. As a couples therapist, I'm always trying to pull for couples, and I'm always trying to go for the optimistic side of things. But there comes a time when it absolutely is wise to pull the plug, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's a choice that people make. I've been with a lot of couples and I've been with a lot of individual clients and couples as they go through a decision like that. And it can sometimes really open up doors and really close things down that you really hate, like conflict all the time. Might Kalani meet someone that is more compatible with her? I think we could imagine that. Might Asuelu meet someone that's more compatible with him? Perhaps, hard to know. But can they make it work? I think they can. They are talking about going to therapy. Let's see if that works.
I love him, but I have to start loving myself and loving my boys more.
Say what you like when you do as you might, when you say it's all right.
And by the way, a lot of you have emailed me saying that after watching my videos or listening to my podcasts, particularly my deep dives that are available to patrons only, you will learn a lot of things. Not as if this is therapy, of course, it's educational only. But you'll learn things about yourself and you'll say, that past relationship that I ended, I think we could have actually salvaged it if I had recognized my part in it and maybe helped my partner with their part in it. At the time, I had this narrative that my partner was completely evil or just completely pathological or a malignant narcissist, as the internet will call it. And now looking back, I think it was more nuanced than that. I think we were both triggering each other, unfortunately, and it just went down a certain road, and then we broke up. And both of us felt like the other person was to blame, but looking back, it's clear we were just triggering each other's traumas. We could have actually salvaged it maybe. I don't want to because it's over now, but I wonder if I had a good couples therapist or if I had this education back then, if it might have helped. And I think the same applies here. All right, well, that does it for that episode of Psychology in Seattle. Everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.